Hey, Riff listeners, great to have you with us today on a very special episode as we're continuing our Masterclass series with a very important topic on parenting with our guest psychologist, Briana Leach. She did a phenomenal job in the Masterclass, and we want to bring this to all of our listeners. Also, if you have someone in your world who they are interested probably in some parental tools, how to make an impact at home or how to live with your kids without losing your mind. Some very life-giving information here in this episode. Make sure you forward this to them. So without further ado, let's jump into the special masterclass with Briana.
Welcome to tonight's masterclass. When Preston invited me to this, I thought, well, that's a little intimidating. A masterclass. It sounds very official, but I'm excited. I love that North Point does this. This is a wonderful service for our community and for you guys to take time out of your busy week and be here tonight to talk about a super uncomplicated topic of parenting. So when he mentioned that topic, I thought, well, there's 100 different directions we could go with this. Am I in the right spot? Am I okay? Okay, I'm gonna scoot. There we go. 100 different directions we could go with this. And like he said, I'm a licensed counselor. And so tonight, I'm gonna give you the 5 ways to be a perfect parent. Are you guys ready? I'm totally kidding. We are going to talk about mental health in parenthood. Does that sound okay? Does that sound like something you might wanna learn a little bit about? He said, talk about something that you're passionate about and that he could hand me the mic and I could talk to you all night about this. So that's exactly what we're gonna talk about. Before we jump into that, I want to introduce myself a little bit more. So hello, my name is Briana. We have a slide, let's see, that is my family. I don't know if you there it is. I have 3 wonderful little ones and 1 husband. That's my husband, Ben. And my 3 kids, Kason is just turned 12. Dalton is 9 3/4, like my shirt, and Meadow is 7 1/2. So they are a blast, and they are my source of a lot of this, of understanding parenting, and the greatest impact on my mental health has been since 12 years ago when I became one. So I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been in the counseling world for about 18 years. I've worked at psychiatric hospital here in town. I've done in-home counseling with families and children, like you said, adolescents and children. And then I do individual counseling and coaching, both as a counselor and with strengths. And then I'm an adjunct professor at Evangel University. And I'm working with a couple school districts right now, rolling out some strengths-based strategies. So I get bored easily, if you can't tell. So I like to wear a lot of different hats, as I'm sure many of you do too. So I am passionate, though, about understanding that there's no such thing as a perfect parent, but there are steps you can take to become a healthy parent. And so we're gonna talk tonight about, we have a few goals, so I'll put them up here. I had the goals for tonight is to understand, you can take a screenshot if you want, but just trust me, we're gonna hit on all of them. Understand, maybe reevaluate any misconceptions about mental health and parenthood. I'm gonna introduce, and you can learn about the 6 stages of parenting. Maybe you're familiar with them, maybe you're not. Exploring the 3 main areas of self-awareness that contributes to your mental health. And then I hope you walk away with at least one aha, at least one, or something to apply to your parenting, no matter what stage you are in, because we have probably every single stage represented here tonight. And like I said, I am not a professional parent by any means. If anyone tells you they're a parenting expert, they're lying. Walk away slowly. But no one can be an expert on the most complicated, nuanced, amazing, incredible, draining job in the entire world. So you can understand behavior, we can understand what we bring to it, and that's what we're gonna go through tonight, is understanding what mental health is and the stages of parenting that you may be in and what those two, how they affect each other. So starting off with what is mental health? I've heard professionals, I've heard very educated people say, oh, she has mental health. And I just wait for the next word to come in because yes, she also has physical health and emotional health. And the word mental health doesn't indicate that there's a problem. Maybe some of you have heard that of, oh, they have mental health. But mental health, by definition, it consists of our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. You can see why this is a huge part of parenthood. And then also, what contributes most to our mental health over anything else is self-awareness. So I call myself a self-awareness educator. I want to help you understand you. We can't be an expert on parenting, but you can be an expert on yourself and be an expert on your child. So self-awareness is really built up out of three things, which is expectations, comparison. Jeremy already hit on that. That was very altruistic of you, Jeremy. And self-regulation. So, which is also you're right there, I didn't see you. So, which is your self-talk and your self-understanding. And those are not the same thing. But self-regulation is incredibly important. It's the way we manage our own behavior and reactions. And I don't know about you, that's something I struggle with every single day. My self-regulating, even getting here tonight, needed a little bit of work. So that's something we'll talk about as well in each stage. So what I want to present to you are, I went with the paper notes, which aren't always as easy. I'm going to present you a staggering statistic about parenting that always blows me away. But approximately 100% of parents have dealt with mental health issues while raising children. Agreed? Common sense was my source for that. I'm very scholarly like that, but everyone has dealt with this. If you think you're immune, you are not. If you haven't dealt with it yet, you will. If you haven't dealt with it yet, I'd love to talk to you and hear what you're doing differently. But we all deal with it. No one is immune. Raising humans is hard. And beyond that, just the acknowledgement of that, I want you to see how your thoughts, expectations, feelings, behavior all impact the scope and the lens that you have on your parenting. So there was a Pew Research study about parenting in America today recently, and they came out with some statistics of that parents think it's harder than usual, but they give themselves high marks for doing it. So they would say it's one of the most important aspects of who they are. They rate the job they do as a parent as pretty great. Like our friend Andy Dwyer, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well. So that's kind of what I ascribe to as a parent. But acknowledging that this has been much harder than I thought. Maybe my expectations weren't clear. Maybe they weren't healthy. Maybe they were completely unrealistic. And knowing that that's going to play a role into your mental health. And mental health is not, being healthy is not necessarily a set of characteristics. It's not a way of being. It's being able to fully express and communicate your emotions. And being able to know what I'm going through, what I'm feeling is okay. I just need to learn how to cope with it or understand what it's shaping as I'm presenting it. So Dr. Ellen Galinsky created the 6 stages of parenthood, which is what we're going to run through tonight. So you can take a screenshot of these 6 stages when they pop up, and we will go through each one, but looking at maybe you're in one of them, maybe you're in several of them. Dr. Ellen Galinsky created this kind of drawing from Erickson's lifespan stages, where we go through all different stages throughout our life. You're gonna go through stages as a parent. And understanding where you're at on this spectrum can help you also look at how your mental health is affecting that. So stage 1, this is the image-making stage. You're called the dreamer. This is the only stage where you are a perfect parent. Kind of like the meme you guys showed of, oh, my child will never do that. I'm definitely going to have them all whipped into shape, and they're never going to do that. And This won't stress me out too much. My favorite is hearing of the baby will adjust to our lifestyle. Thank you. I was going to say the collective laughter is, yes, you're all a professional parent until you have a baby. And then you realize it may not have been what you expected. This is the stage where you're planning for the child. Maybe you're pregnant. Maybe you're in the adoption phase. Maybe you're trying to become pregnant. And you're dreaming of what it means to be a parent and what life's going to look like. What are we going to be like as a couple? Or maybe you were thrown into parenthood unexpectedly as a foster parent or an unexpected pregnancy, and you are dreaming of what is this going to look like. It's very much the visionary dreamer stage. So in this stage, thinking of those things that affect your mental health, your expectations, your comparison, and your self-regulation, looking at what are my expectations in this phase. Maybe some of you are in that phase right now and saying, I think this is what it's going to look like. I think it's going to be wonderful, and I hope it is for you. But understanding, are my expectations realistic? And where are they coming from? As a counselor, I ask all the time 2 questions. And I ask these, we're going to ask these all night, of why is that important to you? Instead of just why, that sounds a little too direct. But why is that important to you? And my favorite question is only 2 words, and it says who? Because we have a lot of thoughts in our mind, we have a lot of self-talk, and we don't identify who's speaking it. If it's from us, if it's from our past, if it's something we're bringing into a situation, but says who? In parenting, our kids have to look cute every Sunday when we come to church. Says who? They just need to get here, or you just can be here. If they have clothing and they're appropriate, it's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time. So in this stage though, self-regulating, maybe things don't look the way you had expected. Maybe it's not going the way you thought it would be. Maybe you're pregnant or your partner is pregnant and they're sick all the time. And this is really affecting your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And it can set the tone for parenthood for you. You think, man, is this what it's gonna be? Is this gonna be draining? But being able to self-regulate and ask those questions and understand that you're not the only one feeling this way, seeking external support and guidance. And like I said, we could spend a whole class on each one of these stages, but running through them, I want you to be able to ask questions, and I'll see if we have any questions for stage 1 before I move on to the next stage.
Okay, one question that for stage 1 on the expectations. What if you're dreaming about having a child, but you can't? Mm-hmm. So obviously that would be an unmet expectation.
That's right.
Talk about that for a second.
That's right. Yes, and that is a very heartbreaking reality for so many people. So reevaluating the expectations of this is what my family was going to look like. And as a counselor, a lot of people think we just offer advice, but really it's exploring. I'm a professional question asker, so exploring what that looks like for you. Why is having, this many children or having a child important to us? Are there other means that we may want to explore? Are there expectations that we're maybe telling ourselves that we're alone in this and we're not seeking support? So my quick advice for that, or my quick answer to that would be, you're not alone, and it will feel like it. Honestly, that's the biggest struggle for any. Isolation amplifies any struggle. When you feel like you're the only person dealing with this, it's gonna feel a lot bigger. And realizing that there are resources out there to help, and talking about it. Normalizing that you hate this. I hate this. This sucks. This feels terrible. And I'm angry. And again, being healthy is expressing those valid emotions and being able to talk about it with your partner, with anyone else who can support you, and even seeking professional help. All right, so stage 2. This is the nurturing stage. Your title in this one is the protector. So we are in infancy now, Lord bless you. You are developing an attached relationship with the child. You're adjusting to life with baby. You are running on very little sleep. So I think we've got a couple here, but being able to realize my expectations of this stage rarely, at least from my experience and families I've worked with, they rarely line up to reality. You don't know when you have that baby or when you adopt that baby that we're going to be dealing with colic for months, or we're going to be dealing with extra special needs or medical needs or things that might have played a role into this. And so when your lens of looking at parenthood is based on an expectation versus your reality, which is very different, that's where the tension, that's where the lack of peace comes from. And when there's a lack of peace in your reality, it's hard to have peace in your parenting. And so with this stage, with the protector stage, you're developing, you're getting the first smiles, you're figuring out, yes, we're running on little sleep, but you're comparing yourself sometimes to other people and saying, well, they're 3 months and they're rolling over. Should our baby be rolling over? And it's hard. It starts right out the gate of, my kid came out with a head full of hair, or they're totally bald for like 2 years. And just being able to understand it's okay to vocalize that. It's okay to talk about that. And then the self-regulating in this stage, you're going to self-care 101. Getting sleep when you can, actually eating as much as you can, especially if you're a nursing mom, and being able to connect with other people. In this stage, community is really important. So being able to, whether that's online, whether that's in person, there is total value in online forums and communities of other parents going through things that you're going through so that you don't feel alone yet again. So for this stage, the protector stage, you're keeping them safe. They're in their special car seats. You're trying to shelter them from anything that could hurt them. You're making sure they are up to date on their vaccines or taking their vitamins or making sure that they are protected in this stage. And how you feel about this stage is going to greatly impact how you lead this stage. So for stage 2, do we have any questions?
Yes. Would you go deeper on how you feel about this stage impacts? And then I do have a question that came in. So when you say how this stage impacts, or how you feel about this stage impacts how you deal with it, what do you mean by that? How should we feel?
Sure. Thank you for clarifying that. I think how you view something, there's a lot of confirmation bias. If you're looking for joy, you're going to find joy. If you're looking for stress, you're going to find stress. I'm not saying to neglect your reality, but how you approach it of, we've been given this gift, this amazing gift. How can we take care of ourselves to be the protectors of this gift in this stage? And when there are struggles mentally, whether it's disconnect, resentment with your spouse, or resentment with just this stage of life of lack of sleep, that can greatly impact the care that you give for yourself and your baby.
Someone said, dealing with a 3-year-old who is very jealous of his brother and is needing lots of attention. That would probably go into self-regulating, I would guess.
Yeah, and we'll hit on toddlers in the next stage, but these overlap. And that's just it. A lot of you will be in multiple stages. So they do snowball into the next one, but they also come back. And when you have multiple children, you think what we did with the first one may or may not work with the younger one again. If anybody goes into parenting thinking same song, different verse for the next child, we know very quickly that's not true. But with a jealous toddler, it is very real, and that's something that their emotions are valid too. So much of parenting is modeling. So being able to say, you know what, I miss how things used to be too. This is really hard. So at a very young age, you can model validation, and that's important for them to know. There's a lot of tips online as far as how to bring them next to you while you're doing things. One thing I really caution against is automatically assuming the older child will be the helper. I when I work with families, I suggest that you let it be their idea. If they want to, that's great. You can celebrate that. If not, they didn't choose to be born first. So they may already at a young age resent that this person stole my playmate, the person I've been with nonstop for 3 or 4 years. So being able to validate that even at that young of an age is important. So speaking of toddlers and big feelings, we'll move on to stage 3. This is the authority stage. Also, the nickname is King and Queen. So, toddler and preschool, this is where you're creating rules and clarifying your role as the authority figure. I've actually said to my daughter, we don't do that in this kingdom. So, princess, I am still in charge, but we don't do that in this kingdom. So this is the stage where you're putting a lot of boundaries. We walk over here, we don't walk here, or this is what we're doing. We eat this, we don't touch this. There's a lot, you're on a lot. So I was just telling this table, I said 12 to 24 months is the hardest phase, for me at least, and what I've seen with families, because they don't negotiate yet. They're just moving nonstop. So it's exhausting in a very different way. But you are establishing yourself as the king or the queen of your family, and you can be a gracious monarch and calmly tell them where the boundaries are. That doesn't always stick. You have to reiterate that on and on, but you're laying the foundation in this stage as far as we know the child, we know we can trust you. And as far as your mental health goes, expectations here get real murky right out the gate. So when they aren't talking yet, we can just imagine what they're saying back to us. When they start talking or giving feedback, it can be really insulting, some of the things they say, or maybe we expected them to like certain things or want to participate in certain things, or just have a different personality even, and that doesn't always line up. So being able to not compare, even with multiple children, not comparing the younger one to the older one or the older one to the younger one, and the comparison that plays a role in how you view this stage. And then with self-regulating in this stage, this is when they start to talk and they start to form more opinions, and you have to learn not to take it personally sometimes, and that's hard, but being able to understand developmentally they are learning. A lot of times with self-regulating, if you can ask yourself the question, is this age appropriate? Is this something a 3-year-old would say? Even though I'm already advancing them, I'm sure they're super smart and advanced, but is this a way that a toddler would act? Is this a way that I have seen other people, their children? That's when comparison doesn't always hurt. Sometimes it's okay to normalize things by seeing other toddlers doing it as well. But expect resistance, expect pushback, and the regulation side comes from, again, Self-Care 101 transfers into every single one of these stages. Are you sleeping? Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you talking to someone about your feelings? Are you talking to someone about the struggles of parenting in this stage? Are you able to normalize that I'm not the only one who feels this way? Are you catching on to a theme that we feel isolated sometimes and it feels a lot bigger than we think it is? So for stage 3, toddler preschool, are there any questions?
Yes, lots of them. We'll hit some of them during the Q&A after this.
Right.
But I'm just going to read this way it is because I think that it's going to be a question mark at the end. Aggressive behavior and self-regulating in 20-month-olds, and then I'm guessing question mark, like what do we do?
When in doubt, add water. I with kids and regulating, that's one rule that I always come back to. So when a child that age the part of their brain has not formed for self-regulating. It's just not going to be there. So that goes to expectations. I'm expecting them to sit where I told them to sit and stay in that circle or that space. That is unrealistic. So being able to say, okay, let's go, let's add a cup of water. Literally, this with 20-month-olds especially. Let's go in the bathtub. Let's go play outside. Let's go turn on the sprinkler. Let's do something with regulating in that moment if you have that luxury. When you don't, you have to adjust your own expectations of this child cannot tell me what their needs are, what their feelings are, so I'm gonna have to regulate for them and model regulation. At this age, co-regulation is extremely important because they're learning, okay, when mommy gets really overwhelmed or daddy gets upset, they take a deep breath, or they exit the room and say, I need to calm myself down. Or you sit next to the child who sometimes we want to send them off when they aren't acting the way we want them to, but it's really important. The research shows the closer we can be to them in proximity and show them safety without judgment is really important. So for that 20-month-old, obviously not knowing the full story, add water and co-regulate. So, okay, stage 4. We are in the interpretive stage. You are their guide. So you are, if you can imagine, you're behind their shoulders and you're kind of pointing them at different things. So you're here right with them and you're pointing them. This is middle childhood, elementary age. You're helping the child interpret experiences with social world beyond your family. And you as parents are deciding what values will shape your parenting. So that's why the school age is very common. You've exited preschool. You're in middle childhood until they reach adolescence. But this is for a lot of kids, some of them haven't been to school before. Some of them haven't really been out in the community much until about here. They're starting to play sports or they're in activities. And your expectations of this stage may run the full gambit of, we are going to be a family that's really involved in our community. We're going to do a lot of things. This is what's important to us. Or maybe you're halfway through this stage and you realize what was important at the beginning isn't as important now. Or maybe a little thing happens like a pandemic and shifts all of your expectations for a stage like this. And then your comparison. In this stage, activities are a huge comparison game where this family seems to be handling 6 sports at once and doing just fine with it, whereas we can't even get our cleats on for one game. So realizing that that's going to play a huge role into how your mind is processing this stage and how your mind is dictating your thoughts, feelings, and behavior in this stage. As far as self-regulating with kids this age, the insults you had in the toddler preschool stage are times 10. Now I'm sure none of your kids have ever said this. My children, my sweet angels, have told me I'm the worst mom on the planet. I never let them do anything. I am the literal worst. And I mean, a few more of those. But in those moments, it's really easy to go, yeah, I am the worst. I am the worst. And that would set me into a slippery slope of, yeah, I'm just going to clock out. And sometimes you need to do that, and that's okay. But the healthy side is normalizing. It's okay that they're doing this. They're learning to express themselves. We're going to talk about, in our kingdom, we're going to be a little kinder to each other, and those words actually hurt me. And that's part of self-regulating, is managing your behavior and your reactions of saying, if we love each other, we don't talk like that to each other. And it's okay to be gentle in your response, even if the words are really harsh. But part of your self-regulation in that stage is understanding that they are learning opinions. This is the first time they're being exposed to things out in the world and kind of taking that in and understanding, so who am I and who am I within this unit? Or maybe if it's just one child, it's saying, okay, what is it like for other families with siblings? And what does that look like for me? And maybe I run the show and not my parents. And there's a lot of pushback in this phase as well. But it's one that is also extremely fun because you're getting to know their personalities and you're getting to know their likes and dislikes and things you have in common. And maybe there's expectations that your child is going to go a route that you went. And this is what you bring in from your childhood. Maybe this is when a lot of things start to come to light of your own parenting experience, how you were parented. And this is when it gets a little trickier of things that you do and don't want to repeat. Those are the values that play into this stage. It's also one of the longest stages because you have several years where you're think about a child from age 5 up to 13 and realizing how different they've how much they've changed, how much you've changed in the process, and that those changes are wonderful, and that you don't want to stay stagnant. You want to constantly be reevaluating during this stage. So during the guide stage, what questions do we have?
I would say a lot of questions. So we're going to have a great Q&A afterwards as well, so keep sending them in. One that really stands out is, how do you help parents with the comparison of their roles in this stage, mom versus dad?
Yeah, that's great. I'm wrestling with this myself. No, it's good. That's a great question because, again, it presents the reality that we come at it from very different perspectives. And if you are in a scenario or an environment where one parent is the activities coordinator and the default parent and the answerer of all the questions. I heard a comedian talk about, the school called and they were like, hey, is your child on bus, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I didn't even know he rode the bus. I don't know what bus they're on. And so that it's hard in that stage when it feels like sometimes the balance is shifted versus, maybe in toddler, you're all hands on deck. And now we're kind of managing schedules and managing that. So expectations in this stage are extremely important. Being able to say, in any situation, expectations have to be communicated, whether it's to yourself. Am I even aware that I'm expecting this? So communicating it to yourself and then communicating it to the people that it will impact, whether it's a family meeting talking about this, because this is the stage you can start introducing more responsibilities for the children as well. But being able to communicate those expectations that I don't know how I got roped into cruise ship director, but I'm doing it. And it's all behind the scenes. And now I'm upset and I'm frustrated. And you can talk about that because most likely the people you're with or your family or maybe even community, people that are in your life, your village or whatever that looks like, may not even be aware that you're feeling this burden. So being able to identify and communicate those expectations during this stage are critical. So next stage 5, we're moving right along, guys. I'm trying to get through all of this and get room for Q&A too. This is the interdependent stage. You are coach. You're in the huddle, but you're on the sidelines. So you're there, you're helping, you're establishing boundaries and renegotiating your relationship with adolescent child to share power in decision-making. Now, some of you may read that and say, what? I'm not letting a teenager make decisions in their, in this parenting relationship. However, I would encourage you that secure attachment research and theory would say this is the best case scenario that you could give your child some say in their life and be able to give them some freedom to make some decisions. But you're in the huddle. You might be saying, ooh, that was not a good play. Let's try it a different way. Teenagers are a little awkward. I teach adolescent psychology, and it is my favorite class to teach because I love teenagers. They're fantastic. And they are their brains are cooking. They are moving along. They think they're fully there and they're not quite yet. So it's really fun because you are seeing so much more of their personality. The renegotiating the relationship, that doesn't mean you're not still the authority. It just means I'm letting you in on a lot of the whys more often instead of, I don't like obey right away without delay, but you're letting them in on a lot more of, this is why we're doing this. This is why this is important to our family. And you can start that in the middle childhood stage, but cognitively, they won't quite be there yet to understand. And then I know families who do an appeals process for consequences. So let's say you're in a new phase and you don't have really a set rule for something and something comes up and you're like, that's it, you're grounded for 6 months, or I'm taking your phone for a year. And after you self-regulate and calm down a little bit, they can have the chance to say, you can say, that was a little off the wall. We need a consequence because it's not okay. We don't do that in this kingdom. But what would be your suggestion for consequences? And giving them some autonomy in that moment. And that's so important for them to understand down the road in life, because we're raising adults. We want them to be fully functioning, autonomous adults. And we're giving them that thought process of when I do something that's requires consequence, I need to know there's going to be follow-up. I don't get away with it that easy. So this stage, we could do an entire evening of just this stage, but are there any questions for stage 5?
Yes. What if you have a teenager that has ADHD and ODD? They're having trouble controlling their emotions. And I would imagine your background in adolescent psychology would be helpful here.
Those are the 2 most common diagnoses that I worked with when I did in-home counseling. And that's a great question. He said, what do those mean? ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ODD is oppositional defiant disorder. So it is a chronic pattern of resistance to authority, acting out, not able to emotionally regulate. So this is where some of the previous stages, you're building, if you can kind of see there's a pattern, you're building on each stage, but this is where modeling, co-regulation helps a lot. In those cases with diagnosis, hopefully they have access or are seeking professional help, because what I would often do is come in to the home. I loved in-home counseling because you get to see the environment. You see their room, you see where they eat dinner. Part of that stage and understanding those behaviors is consistent connection. And unfortunately with parenting, it is consistency, not convenience. So having dinners together, having check-ins regular, and I'm gonna give you some ideas in a minute for creative connection, but connecting with this stage with adolescents, they will act like they can't stand you and don't want to be in the room with you. And they want you so badly. They want you to be the annoying parent that is excited to see them and be with them. And again, your mental health, your mindset, your thoughts, feelings, behaviors towards these teenagers is going to directly impact their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors about themselves. When you tell them they're fantastic, they're wonderful, I'm so glad I get to be your parent every day, they're gonna believe it. They're gonna start believing it about themselves. With diagnoses like that, and with I feel for you, this person who asked this question, I feel for you, it can feel so out of the realm of possibility that you can have a connection with this child, but they desire it. They want it. Even the hardest ones, they want to know that they're loved and seen, and just partnering with them saying, we're gonna get through this. I'm gonna help you be a functioning adult someday, and we're gonna figure this out together. So that support is really, really key. Okay, stage 6. We're at the last stage. So this is the departure stage, cue the tissues, but it can be really fantastic too. This is the spectator stage. This is early adulthood, evaluating your parenting to this point. There's a lot of reflection. Kind of like the last stage of lifespan development is integrity versus despair. It's like, did I do a good job? Did this child turn out the way we expected him or her to? There's a lot of reevaluating even of how you'll do it with maybe kids that are younger with them. But then at this point, the exciting part is that you move into a new relationship. You're never gonna graduate out of parenthood. You're not done, you don't get a certificate, you're not racing towards a finish line. It's just gonna look different. I've had several counseling clients that are moms of seniors, and they're like, I'm almost done. And I thought, with what? You're not done at all. I know we all still need parents. We need people pouring into us and parenting us, whether it's your biological parents or not. But this is moving into a new relationship. So what are your expectations with that? Are your expectations that we're gonna still talk every single day? Or it's going to look like what this person I see on social media, they have wonderful relationships together. So obviously that's what's gonna happen with me. And again, this is affecting your thoughts, feelings, behavior toward your child because you might be doing those things. And then also self-regulating in this moment. This is a lot of the conversations of what does it look like to be an adult? What does it look like to launch, to go to college or move into a job? And maybe you've built some of those skills in the adolescent teen years and moving into, this is what I would love for our relationship to look like. You can move into more of a friend mode, more of a spectator and cheering them on whatever their goals are, their pursuits. But the goal of parenting isn't to keep them reliant on us. And I know that's hard sometimes. We've done all this effort, all this investment over the years, and they will eventually depart from us. And we get to be the spectators and not be done with parenting, but just adjust what that looks like. So, any questions for this stage?
How do you not feel defeated when your adult child doesn't follow the path that you thought they should go?
Well, so the counselor in me is saying, why is it important that they followed the path that you wanted? That would be my first question and who says that's the path that was best for them? Is it you? Is it culture? Is it the church? Is it, so there's a lot of follow-up questions. It's hard, but being able to look inside and say, again, it starts back in early childhood. Wow, their personality is different than mine. What I thought they would be into is different than what I thought. So constantly reevaluating, are my expectations realistic? Do I have to take a step back and be a gentle spectator at this point and say, I'm here for you? And the hardest part of parenting is letting them fail or letting them mess up or fall or whatever that looks like. So that's really difficult. That would be my first questions of, what does that mean to you? Why is that important? Okay, so we have blazed through those 6 stages. Good job. You guys are doing great. So I always ask this. I work a lot with teens. So SWWC is their common phrase of, so what, who cares? Like, why are we learning any of this? Why does this matter? So I love Dr. Daniel Siegel's work. This quote's from Parenting from the Inside Out. Research in the field of child development has demonstrated that a child's security of attachment to parents is very strongly connected to the parent's understanding of their own early life experiences. So Dan Siegel has a book called The Whole Brain Child. It's also fascinating and helps normalize a lot of the stages that they go through. And kind of like we said, a 20-month-old has no self-regulation. Do not ever expect it. You can model it, you can co-regulate, but don't expect it. Same with teenagers. Again, your brain is fully cooked at 24. So we expect a lot out of kids who are not fully developed in their brain. So it's hard when that's conflicting with their behavior, but understanding that your own work, the thing I'm passionate about is your self-awareness, because when you understand what baggage, what good things and bad things you bring from your own childhood into parenting, and you can drop some of the weight. Maybe there's things some of you here and even at the other campus, you have been through trauma. You've had a horrible childhood and you don't want to repeat any of that. Maybe you are struggling consistently with mental health issues and you're dealing with depression or anxiety or severe PTSD, and you think, how do I raise a human while I'm dealing with all of this? So being aware that that's okay. I'm sorry you're dealing with that, but we all bring in our own lenses, our own struggles, and understanding that and processing it with a professional, with people that you can trust and talk that will help support you. That is part of being healthy in our minds so that we can give our full selves to our children and we can be aware of, yes, this is really draining, but this is what I've been gifted. In all my work with families and even with my own children, it doesn't matter how that child ended up with you or in that home. You are exactly who they need. You are exactly who God wants leading them, guiding them, coaching them, spectating later on. But you are exactly that person, because that's going to be one of the first doubts you have of, I can't even do this. I don't even think I can do this today. So what areas of self-awareness have impacted your mental health and parenting? As we go through these stages, you've maybe identified what stage or stages that you're in, but looking at expectations, looking at comparison, looking at self-regulation, where do you need to maybe take some time and think about it? Maybe you've realized, I actually need to talk with someone, talk with a professional. I hope everyone is in counseling. I am a huge advocate that you can start yesterday. It'd be great. Preventative care is 10 times more effective than reparative. Same reason you go to a primary care physician every year, just to check. You go to dermatologist, can we look everything over, just make sure I'm good? Same with mental health. To be able to get care and be preventative is really important and one of the greatest gifts you can give your children. So the next slide, there's a phrase you may have heard multiple times, connection before correction. It sounds great. I love alliteration. It's great. But I want to spin it a little bit. So yes, you should connect with your kids before you correct them. They don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. But connect with yourself as the parent, as well as connect with the child before you go into here are the consequences, or here's what I'm trying to give feedback on, or anything like that. For some reason, they tend to get defensive, especially teenagers might say, well, why are you telling me all this? But asking yourself, how do I feel? So when I worked at the psychiatric hospital in Springfield, we did therapeutic crisis intervention training. And they said, you're gonna go into crisis mode or helping, but the very first thing you need to do is ask yourself, how do I feel? Because maybe you're not the right one to respond to this crisis. Maybe you need to get a buddy or get some support before you go in and try to put out the fire. So asking yourself, how do I feel? What does this child need? So what does the 20-month-old need? They need a redirection. They just need to squirrel and look over there, and it will probably diffuse the bomb that was about to go off. And then are there course corrections that need to take place? I hope you know if you are in a later stage, let's say you're in stage 5 or stage 6 of parenting, it's not too late to course correct. It's never too late. Even if you have adult children and you're able to say, hey, I want to know you better. I apologize if you did something that you regret or handled maybe improperly. That is powerful at every age, and it's never too late to do that. And actually, the research shows when you course correct in person with your child, that really strengthens your attachment with that child. So being able to look at that. So I said I'll give you a few quick creative ways to connect, because this is important in all stages. You may want to take a picture of this. So some creative ways to connect. Family traditions. This can be every day. This could be weekly, monthly, yearly. Maybe you have a special handshake with the child. Regularly mention attributes about your child that you love. Telling them, I love the way you flip your hair this way, or I love that you put your shoes on the wrong feet, or I love whatever attributes that are only them. Have your child, this is great for older children, have your child teach you about a skill or a topic. There's all kinds of TikTok dances, I don't know, but if your teenager can teach it to you, that will form an instant connection. And they like to be the expert. They like to be the expert on something. Maybe they love dinosaurs. Have your child teach you about those dinosaurs that they've invested in. Running errands with just one child if you have multiple, and being intentional about your car conversation. Don't just turn on the music and they're just doing their thing in the back or having a screen. And I will not shame you for screens in any way, but just making the most of that moment. Good night sayings with each child. My 9 3/4 son, we still say, I love you to infinity and beyond, because he was a huge Buzz Lightyear fan. And so probably until he's launched, even so, I'll still say that to him. So, and then the last one was open door policy in regards to questions and feedback. Part of modeling self-regulating and that you're working on your own mental health is open, honest conversations of, hey, you can come to us with just about anything without judgment. You can have an open door policy with us that maybe you come up with a safe word that this is something that I don't want to get in trouble for, but I really want to talk to you about and process. Because if they can't do it with you, they're going to do it with someone else. And you want to be that safe place to land for them. The beautiful thing about all of this, and knowing that maybe you've had a few things tonight that stand out and you say, oh man, I don't think I can do that. I'm still struggling with things from my past, or I'm struggling with things right now, or we have a really difficult child that is taking away time from another child, or whatever the fill in the blank for that is. Every single one of you represents a family that is writing your own story and dealing with your own struggles. And that's okay. The beauty of God's promise to us, this is my number one parenting verse, is 1 Corinthians 12:9. But he said to me, talking about Jesus, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." Knowing that you don't have to be all the things. You don't have to have all the answers. But taking care of yourself on the inside, prioritizing your mental health, whatever that looks like in whatever stage that you're in, is key to being a healthy parent for your family. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.